It's not every day you watch a grown man break down in front of an entire boardroom, but I did, because a little girl, maybe 7, 8 years old, walked in with a pink plastic piggy bank clutched in both hands and said, "Please, don't let my daddy die." That moment, it stopped the world. Hey, if this story resonates with you, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this story, it will stay with you forever. My name is Marcus, and I'm the CEO of a billion-dollar health tech company. But last month, I nearly lost everything: my credibility, my company, and what little belief I had in humanity. It all started with one pitch. We were reviewing last chance grant applications, our annual program that gives life-saving tech to patients who can't afford it. But this case, it wasn't like the others. This one wasn't about numbers or innovation. It was about a man in a coma and a little girl who refused to give up. The conference room was sterile, glass walls, cold lighting, and the scent of freshly printed dossiers. Outside, rain drummed on the windows like a ticking clock, counting down to failure. We'd already seen 5 pitches. Nothing special. My team was tired. I was tired. Then she walked in. Tiny rain-soaked sneakers squeaked on the polished floor. Her name was Emily. No scheduled slot. No credentials. Just a child and her aunt clutching a wrinkled letter from our help desk. I almost had her escorted out, but something in her eyes, it froze me. She stepped forward, her voice shook. "My daddy got sick. The hospital said he needs that machine, the breathing one you make, but we don't have money. I brought this." She held up the piggy bank. Coins rattled inside like thunder. Silence fell. Our CFO started to object, but I raised my hand. "Sit," I told the girl. "Tell me everything." Emily spoke of her father, Daniel, a factory worker, who collapsed during a shift. No insurance. No one willing to approve the loan for the ventilator we manufactured. I checked the file. We had rejected their application last week. An algorithm flagged it. Low priority, low survivability. But that was just data. What I saw in her eyes was life. Still, protocol was protocol. I ordered a review. My team resisted. "It's not viable," they said. "We can't play favorites." Then the lab flagged a bigger problem: production delays. We only had 3 machines left in inventory. 3 machines and 50 applications pending. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the clink of coins. I stared at our company slogan on the wall: technology that saves lives. And I realized somewhere along the way, we started choosing profit over people. The next morning, I did something reckless. I personally delivered one of the 3 remaining units to Daniel's hospital. I signed off on it myself. No approvals, no board vote, just faith. Doctors called it miraculous. He responded within 48 hours, breathing on his own within a week. When I visited again, Daniel was awake, confused but alive. Emily clung to him. Her piggy bank was now empty, but her heart was full. The media caught wind. Headlines ran: CEO overrules protocol after child's plea. What they didn't know, that moment saved me too. The board offered to demote me. Instead, I resigned. Then I launched a new fund, one powered by stories, not spreadsheets. 2 weeks later, I got a handwritten card in pink crayon. "Thank you for saving my daddy. When I grow up, I want to be like you, someone who listens." It's still on my desk. I lost my title, but I found something bigger: a voice, a mission, and maybe, just maybe, redemption. I remember staring at that pink crayon card for nearly an hour, not reading it, feeling it. That tiny message weighed more than every award I ever won, every boardroom deal I ever closed. It reminded me that sometimes you don't need a title to lead. You just need ears and a heart. But my story with Emily and Daniel didn't end there. A week after receiving the card, I got a call from the hospital's social worker. Daniel wanted to see me. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to see him, but because I wasn't sure I deserved the thanks. I arrived at his recovery room late in the afternoon. The sun was setting, casting amber light across his bed. Tubes gone, color returning to his face. But what caught me was Emily, curled up in the corner, fast asleep, piggy bank still clutched in her arms like a teddy bear. Daniel turned to me with tired but grateful eyes. "I don't remember much," he said, "but I remember her crying, and then someone saying yes. That yes changed everything." I didn't tell him about the chaos that followed. The headlines, the backlash, the lawyers, the boardroom debates. Instead, I said what mattered. She saved you, not me. She walked into a place where no child should ever have to walk, and she changed the outcome. He looked down. Tears filled his eyes. "I was never the hero," he whispered. "Just a guy who clocked in every day to feed his daughter. That's all I wanted." That hit me like a freight train, because for years, I thought being a hero meant innovation, disruption, scale. Turns out it meant presence. When I left the hospital that evening, I didn't go home. I went straight to the company's warehouse. I stood in front of our remaining stock, 3 ventilators lined up like sleeping giants. There were still 49 names left on the list, each one a story, each one a plea. I couldn't save them all, but I could change the system. The next morning, I filed the necessary paperwork to dissolve the old grant model. Instead, I founded a new initiative, Heartbeat, a direct-to-patient emergency fund powered by donations from regular people, not corporations. But here's the twist. We let families tell their stories in short video clips, just 60 seconds, raw, real, and people listened. In 72 hours, donations surpassed our monthly grant budget, not from millionaires, not from tech bros, but from single moms, nurses, retired teachers, kids like Emily. One woman donated exactly $7.43. Her note read, "My son emptied his piggy bank, said he wanted to help another daddy too." That broke me, in the best way. Then something strange happened. The company that had once pushed me out called me back. They'd lost major partners after the PR fallout. Share price dipped. Morale tanked. But most of all, they lost their soul. I didn't return as CEO. Instead, I returned as consultant of last resort, on one condition, that every product we built from that point on carried a give back switch, one that could be activated in emergencies, free of charge. Not everyone loved it, but no one could deny what it meant. 3 months later, Daniel walked again. 6 months later, he was back at work, part-time. And at our first Heartbeat Gala, Emily stood on stage with her pink piggy bank, now covered in glitter and stickers, and handed it to me. "This belongs to the next daddy," she said. I've spoken at conferences, sat on panels, signed book deals, but that moment, that was my legacy, because one little girl walked into a boardroom and shattered the silence with truth, and the world, for once, listened. But impact, I've learned, doesn't stop where applause begins. 6 months after Emily handed me her piggy bank on stage, we launched Heartbeat chapters in 10 cities. Each chapter was run not by executives, but by survivors, people like Daniel, families who knew what it meant to wait on hope, to pray for a machine, to count coins and seconds. And one morning, I got a call I never expected. It was Emily's teacher. She told me Emily had started a Kind Coins Club at school. Every week, students dropped spare change into a jar labeled Next Hero. They raised $100 in 2 weeks. But what hit me harder, the teacher said Emily had spoken to her classmates during morning assembly. She said, and I quote, "When you give, You don't just help someone live, you show them they matter. My daddy mattered, so does the next one. I couldn't hold back tears. That day, I flew down to their town unannounced. I walked into that little elementary school gym, crowded with sticky fingers, lunchboxes, and laughter, and saw a group of kids carrying jars full of coins. The principal handed me a note Emily had written for me. "Mr. Marcus, can you take this money and give it to someone who needs to breathe today?" Let me tell you something. I'd closed billion-dollar funding rounds, but I had never seen generosity move that fast, that purely. Later that month, we matched Emily's school's donation and sent the funds to a single mother in rural Texas whose 5-year-old son needed a portable oxygen unit. She sent us a photo, her son smiling, breathing freely on a picnic blanket. Emily framed it herself. We hung it at the entrance of Heartbeat HQ, right beneath a sign that reads, "Stories save lives." Of course, not everything was perfect. There were skeptics. Corporate donors pulled out. Some said we were emotionally manipulating the public, that stories shouldn't dictate medical priority. But they were missing the point. It was never about emotional decisions. It was about humanizing data. Because sometimes a spreadsheet says low survivability, but a piggy bank says try anyway, and we did. Then came the biggest moment yet. The White House called. I was invited to speak at a national summit on healthcare equity. I told them Emily's story, not the viral version, not the headline, the real one, about how a child changed the decision-making structure of an entire company, about how she taught us that charity isn't about pity, it's about participation. I ended my talk with the last line from her note, "Give it to someone who needs to breathe today." That line made it into national policy discussions. Congress even proposed Emily's Law, a fund requiring that every government medical vendor reserve a percentage of stock for emergency family appeals. It passed, unanimously. Now it's been 2 years since Daniel opened his eyes in that hospital bed. Emily still writes me letters, only now they're typed in Comic Sans and full of typos and emojis. She calls me Uncle Marcus sometimes, and I don't correct her. She wants to be a doctor. I've already reserved a seat for her on the Heartbeat board when she's ready. And Daniel? He volunteers at a chapter in Philly, delivering oxygen concentrators to families too afraid to even ask for help. He always says the same thing when he knocks. You matter, and someone believed in you today. Sometimes I wonder if Daniel knows the weight those words carry. You matter. It's such a simple thing, but we forget to say it, especially in places where people are suffering, in sterile hospital corridors, in busy call centers, in crowded schools, in our own homes. But Daniel says it like a promise, every time. And people believe him, because he was on the other side. One day, I decided to follow him on a delivery route. He didn't know I was coming. I flew in quietly, wore a hoodie, and just showed up at the Philly chapter that morning. He blinked when he saw me and laughed. "You still remember how to carry a box?" "I'm rusty," I said, lifting a unit into the van. But I learned fast. We drove through old neighborhoods, places that don't show up in fundraising brochures, paint peeling from row houses, kids playing in fire hydrant spray, grandmothers on porches waving like royalty. Daniel told me stories about the people behind each name, the woman who donated her husband's CPAP machine after he passed, the boy who asked for a second-hand unit for his asthmatic dog, the man who gave every Christmas bonus he got just because he finally could. Then we pulled up to a duplex on the corner of Birch and 7th. A woman opened the door, mid-30s, worn out, but holding herself together. Daniel didn't say a word, just smiled, handed her the device, and softly said it. "You matter, and someone believed in you today." She broke down sobbing on her front steps. I stood there floored, not because of the tears, but because of her son. He came out clutching a drawing, Emily's piggy bank, copied in colored pencil. He held it out to Daniel like it was sacred. "I saw her on the computer," he whispered. The girl who helped her dad. I wanted to help mine too. Daniel took the paper and nodded. You already have. That night, I sat in my hotel room and cried. No cameras, no awards, just me and the memory of a little girl in rain-soaked sneakers, clutching a pink plastic piggy bank. Her courage had grown roots, and now it was bearing fruit in places she'd never even see. 2 months later, we hosted the Heartbeat Summit, a gathering of volunteers, partners, and families from every chapter across the country. I asked Daniel to speak. He almost refused, said public speaking wasn't his thing. But I saw the way he looked at the crowd. Hundreds of faces, from surgeons to janitors to children in wheelchairs. He cleared his throat and began. I didn't used to believe people would show up for strangers, but then a stranger showed up for me. And my daughter, well, she didn't wait for the world to fix itself. She walked into a place built for grown-ups and told them to listen. So now, I'm just trying to make sure no one ever has to knock twice. When he finished, they stood. The applause didn't stop. Emily, now 10, ran up on stage and hugged her dad. Then she turned to the mic, giggled, and said, "Can I be CEO now?" Laughter broke out across the room. I knelt beside her and said, "You already are. The whole thing started with you. Now we're expanding internationally. Heartbeat is in Nairobi, in Mumbai, in Rio, everywhere kids breathe and hope and pray for one more day with someone they love. And at every office entrance, no matter the city, language, or currency, you'll find a framed photo of a pink piggy bank. Below it, just 2 words: You matter. That phrase, "You matter," became more than a slogan. It became a movement. We started getting letters from places we'd never imagined reaching. A girl in Lebanon who translated Emily's story into Arabic and read it to her class. A clinic in South Africa where the staff painted piggy banks on the wall in the children's ward. A doctor in Ukraine using donated portable oxygen machines on the front lines, writing, "It's not just the air, it's the dignity that comes with it." And every single time I opened one of those letters, I felt something I hadn't in years. Not pride, gratitude, because it wasn't about me anymore. It was about the people who carried this flame forward. But just when I thought this story had reached its peak, something happened that I never saw coming. I was in Brazil, opening our Sao Paulo chapter, when a staff member tapped me on the shoulder. "There's someone you need to meet," she said. He came a long way. She led me outside to a shaded bench near the edge of the building. Sitting there was a young man, maybe in his 20s, lean, with eyes that had seen too much, too early. He stood, extended a calloused hand, and said in slow English, "My name is Mateo. You don't know me, but Emily saved my brother." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" He smiled, digging into his bag, pulled out a photo. It was a boy hooked up to a ventilator, small, frail, alive. This machine, it came from Heartbeat, donated. Someone in America sponsored it. Later, I found a letter from a girl named Emily with a drawing of a piggy bank and a smiley face. It was taped to the box. My breath caught. "That was 5 years ago," he said. "My brother's okay now, walking, laughing, playing soccer." He paused. "And me? I'm studying biomedical engineering. I want to build better ones, machines that don't cost so much, that last longer, that reach everywhere." I didn't speak. I couldn't. He patted the photo and whispered, "Tell her, thank you." Later that night, I video called Emily, now 12. Braces and all, she answered with a dramatic, "What did I break this time?" I laughed and told her about Mateo, told her her letter had reached across continents. She went quiet, then softly said, "Can I meet him someday?" "You will," I promised. "Soon." 3 months later, at the Global Heartbeat Conference in New York, they met on stage. She gave him a new piggy bank, this one made of wood, engraved with, "For the next kid." He handed her a blueprint of his first prototype, a low-cost oxygen concentrator powered by solar energy, and together they announced the Emily and Matteo Initiative, a program to fund young inventors solving medical access problems from the inside out. The crowd rose to their feet, but I didn't clap right away. I just watched. 2 kids, strangers from different parts of the world, bound by a pink piggy bank and a second chance at life. And I realized, this wasn't my story anymore. It never had been. It was theirs. It was everyone's. That night, after the conference, I sat alone in the empty auditorium. The chairs were half folded, stage lights dimmed, but something inside me burned brighter than ever. I'd spent most of my life trying to build things that would last, companies, products, reputations. But watching Emily and Matteo up there, I finally understood. The only legacy worth building is one that builds others. The next morning, I tendered my full resignation from Heartbeat, not out of defeat, but out of trust. It was time. I walked into Emily's hotel room with a letter and a key. She was already up, cross-legged on the floor with blueprints spread around her, and Matteo pacing as he brainstormed aloud. They were designing again. I handed the key to Emily. She looked confused. "What's this?" "The first key I ever used to unlock Heartbeat's office," I said. "Now it's yours." She stared at me, eyes wide. "Wait, are you retiring?" I nodded. "I'm stepping aside, not away." Matteo raised an eyebrow. "What about all the stuff only you know?" I smiled. "It's in the people I've trained, in the programs we built, and now in the 2 of you." They were speechless. "I started this to save lives," I added, "but it ended up saving me. Now it's your turn." Emily stood up, hugged me without a word. Matteo followed, awkward but sincere. And just like that, I let go. The weeks that followed were the quietest of my life. No calls, no schedules, no red-eye flights, but also no regrets. I started spending time in libraries, hospitals, even shelters, listening, writing, learning. Until one day, I was invited to a tiny town in Vermont by a woman named Karen. She ran a community clinic that had received a heartbeat machine 2 years ago. They wanted to name their new wing after someone, and, shockingly, they chose me. When I arrived, Karen met me in the parking lot. She pointed to a new brick wall with a plaque, but the name on it wasn't mine. It read, "Dedicated to all the ones who gave before they had, inspired by a little girl with a piggy bank." I turned to Karen, who said, "We figured she deserved the legacy. You gave her the stage, but she lit the fire." I nodded, overwhelmed. She did. That night, I wrote Emily another letter. I told her about the wall, the plaque, the kid in the waiting room clutching a toy pig, thinking it was part of some superhero story. And maybe it was, because the truth is, the greatest heroes rarely wear capes or coats. They wear sneakers. They show up with nothing but conviction, and they never ask for credit. They just give. And in doing so, they create a ripple that never stops. I signed the letter, with admiration always, Uncle Marcus. A week later, she replied with a photo. It was of a new drawing, 2 stick figures holding hands, surrounded by tiny hearts and piggy banks falling from the sky. The caption underneath said, "We're just getting started." I stared at that caption, "We're just getting started," for what felt like hours, not because it surprised me, but because I knew she meant it, and she wasn't wrong. 3 months later, Emily and Matteo officially launched the Next Hero Fund, a global accelerator program for kids and teens developing community-based medical solutions. They didn't just raise awareness, they raised millions. Not from venture capitalists, but from people who remembered what it felt like to be voiceless. People who had once been on the other side of the knock and now wanted to knock for someone else. They created mobile clinics in Ghana, rooftop solar-powered ventilators in Bangladesh, and even a Piggy project in Detroit, where students 3D printed banks and used their lunch money change to fund local care kits. The entire model flipped the script. The donors weren't billionaires, they were believers. And somehow, that made the whole thing feel even more sacred. Then, one afternoon, while gardening, my new retirement therapy, I got a call. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Marcus," the voice said, a little shaky, a little older. "Yes, speaking. I don't know if you remember me. My name is Tina Caldwell. You rejected my husband's ventilator application almost 5 years ago." The air in my lungs froze. I'm so sorry," I said, heart pounding. But then she added, "No, please. That call changed our lives." I didn't understand. She explained. They were the family whose application got automatically rejected when Emily walked into our boardroom that rainy day, the very case our algorithm dismissed, the one I had stared at while listening to her speak. "We didn't get the machine at first," she said. "But that day triggered a new review system, right? Because someone big, had pushed back on the rules." She was right. I remembered authorizing emergency appeals manually just days after Emily's visit. "My husband got his ventilator 2 weeks later," Tina said, now crying. "He's alive. He teaches again. And every morning before class, he shows his students a photo of a little girl with a piggy bank and says, 'This is the reason I'm standing here.'" My knees nearly gave out. The full circle, the other side of the miracle, the unseen ripples of one moment, one child, one choice. That night, I lit a candle, not for mourning, but for honor, because I realized we only see a fraction of the impact we make. The rest lives quietly in classrooms, hospital wings, midnight emails, and strangers' smiles. Emily, at 13 now, had started speaking at global summits. Matteo had patented his first device. Heartbeat had merged with the WHO to deliver emergency aid kits faster than most governments could respond. And me? I spent most of my days visiting places that had once been invisible: shelters, rural clinics, school nurse stations. Sometimes I brought cookies, sometimes just a story, but always with the same message: you matter. One rainy afternoon, I visited a kindergarten in Oregon. The teacher recognized me and asked if I wanted to say a few words. I kept it short, simple. Then a little boy raised his hand. "Did you really meet the girl with the piggy bank?" I nodded. "Yes, I did." "Is she famous?" I smiled. "She's more than that. She's brave." The boy leaned forward, eyes wide. "I want to be like her." That's when it hit me. The story wasn't just continuing. It had already become legend, and maybe that's the truth no one tells you. That sometimes, the biggest change doesn't start with a vote, or a title, or a $1 trillion plan. Sometimes, it starts with a little girl, soaking wet, holding a piggy bank, like it's the last chance the world has left. And maybe, just maybe, the real miracle wasn't that a life was saved, but that millions of us remembered what it means to care. So the next time someone says, "You're too small to make a difference," you tell them this: "Then you've never seen what a child with nothing but hope can do." Now it's your turn. What do you think happened next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And if this story moved you, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story that just might change the way you see the world. Because around here, we don't just tell stories, we echo them. Welcome to Fiction Echoes.